Welcome back to another episode of the exEXPERTS podcast. We're here to give you all kinds of information and tips on everything divorce. And you know why? We've lived it, so we get it. I'm Jessica.
And I'm TH. And today we'd like to welcome Mira Vanjari, the Director of Programs at the Center for Hope and Safety in Northern New Jersey, to our podcast today.
Hey, guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So part of what we want to talk, the purpose of having you here today is to talk about the importance of domestic violence, which in particularly now within the confines of the existing pandemic, we know is even riskier and more problematic than other times in the past. And one of the things that we really wanted to start off asking you about is for people at home listening who are trying to maybe determine whether or not their own circumstances would fall into the realm of where it's time for them to be looking for help and time for them to be reaching out. What would you say to that woman listening? Are the things that she needs to be looking for around her home? What are the signs that are the indicators that you're going to be speaking to her right now and saying to her, if this is happening to you, please call us?
I think the most pervasive sign and honestly the beginning of it just escalating is the psychological abuse. So once somebody, your partner, starts to discount, invalidate, or simply deny your thoughts and your feelings, that is number one. The gaslighting, that's being thrown around a lot these days, but it is really pervasive, and it kind of creeps in very slowly, but it is so damaging because you start to question your perceptions, your reality of an experience. So I would say that right there, forget about, what we see on, as a common sign of domestic violence, which is the physicality of it all, right?
Right. That aside, what are the more subtle signs that someone listening is going to say, that happens to me?
Yeah, because, one survivor once said, the psychological abuse doesn't have bruises.
That's right.
So that's there.
How does someone determine, without minimizing the severity of what it is like to be in a relationship where your partner is trying to exert this type of psychological control over you, but how would you help someone to understand whether the circumstances that they're living in are, look, you come home, you've had a long, frustrating day, you're just like being pissy with your partner, and yeah, they may be discounting something that you're saying, but I don't know that it's at the level at which someone needs to be reaching out for help, I guess, unless it's a pervasive pattern on a daily basis. But if it's not, like, how do you know even in the beginning, like, what those initial signs are where you need to kind of wake up and say, is this what's going on?
And see, that's the paradox, because when it's one time here and there, you're right, that's somebody maybe having a bad day, somebody, the partner snapped at you, right? And then it becomes a pattern, and then the apologies don't hold weight because it's too repetitive. And at the end of the day, it's like you look around and you are not feeling okay with the relationship. I think that's, it's hard to say, like, one day you will wake up and say, like, this is terrible and I'm unhappy and I'm not valued, and if anything, I'm disempowered. I think that's how it goes. There is no distinct sign, but it is what survivors share with us is there is a pivotal moment where it's something small, like, they know something that they feel, and somebody tells them, no, it's not you, it didn't happen, it's not my fault. Oh, why do I need to apologize? Please, you're exaggerating, you're overreacting.
So is it a gut check for yourself? Like, if you just check your gut and you keep checking it and it's still giving you the same holy shit kind of feeling, we want this podcast to go out to everyone nationwide. And so I know that every circumstance, every relationship, every human is different. And you've talked about the pervasive, feelings that everyone experiences to some degree. How do you even get the strength to say, I'm going to call a hotline? How do you even connect those two pieces?
Well, that is certainly a difficult step. It's not easy, right? And yet we are truly a phone call away, right? And something else I want to point out is calling us doesn't mean you leave the relationship that day or the next day, which is actually sometimes far more overwhelming than to seek help at times, because it's like, if I sought help, would that mean that I need to physically leave this relationship immediately? Would it mean that my partner would get in trouble? Also, what about the children? And that's the beauty, where you can get help in ways that you're ready for. So if it's just a call and say, hey, these things are happening and they don't feel right. And sometimes all you need is a validation. And we have had survivors working with us in that way, that they have taken weeks, months, even years to actually exit the relationship. So support doesn't mean leaving immediately, as long as, physically or, the danger level don't go to the point of somebody really getting hurt.
And go ahead, TH.
Well, I would imagine it's also important to have your community or someone to go to kind of be a sounding board for you, but not in a threatening way, so that, their confidence level must be so buried that they're going to question their own decisions. So to really find someone you can trust is probably also really scary, right?
Right. Absolutely. And in fact, what happens in these violent relationships, emotionally, psychologically, or physically, is there is a sense of isolation. And then you throw in COVID. Absolutely. Right. So everything is, it's not natural, right? Because you could have been sitting at work, in the cafeteria, and somebody says, hey, are you okay? Like, what's going on? And you might just have that natural opportunity, right, to see that you can trust somebody. And now COVID has taken that away, right? So now it's very deliberate when you reach out to somebody. So if you have somebody that, you can trust and know that they won't, pressure you either way to stay or to leave, because I think that's when sometimes people clam up, because it's really painful to have to talk about it. And then the other thing is, with our hotline, if they call, it is anonymous. You can still get the support and get some resources. We might say, like, are you here? Like, how can we help? Do you want to just talk to somebody? And the upside with COVID too is, like, you can have sessions with our case managers on the phone. If you go out to walk the dog for 15-minute check-in, like, just to check in, you can have that.
So let me ask you, because you are the director of the programs there, and presumably to some extent, the work that you do, which is amazing, and the work that's done at battered women's shelters and domestic violence shelters across the country is probably somewhat similar and aligned with what the programs are. So what would you say for you guys are kind of like the most critical programs? You may have a variety, but if you were to choose two that are like, these are the ones that are the most impactful for these women, families that come through the center, what would those be?
I'm going to have to say our shelter. Because once you are truly fleeing and you have literally nowhere to go, I have to say the shelter. I would say the second one that in the long term ends up being really empowering and helpful to the clients, as well as our legal program. And I know you asked me about two, but I have to put in another one in.
It's okay.
And it is our economic empowerment team. And the reason for that is sometimes even when you do that gut check, like you said, and you know this is not right, survivors tell us they literally don't have money to do anything because that control has been taken away from them. They have not worked because employment was not ever an option because they were always in there, or with COVID, they may have lost those things, right? So COVID really does throw that wrench in, and it actually makes our, survivors out there and victims out there really even more vulnerable.
Tell us about why the legal program is such a pivotal program for your survivors.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, it's about the community, right? And the community includes our legal system coming together and protecting the most vulnerable. So the legal program provides that advocacy, that empowerment and representation, legal representation to get that restraining order, to get that order of protection. And if there are children involved, that's another variable that keeps a lot of the spouses or partners in relationships that are really harmful to them and the children. And all of a sudden now they have an advocate, who has their back and is working through the legal system and, appropriately using the legal system to get some justice.
Right. There's still so much more to be able to talk about, but we're out of time. So I do want to thank you so much for bringing this information to not just the exEXPERTS community, but the community at large, because I know this is a cause that's really close to TH's heart. We're so happy to be able to be working with you guys and partnering with you to bring awareness to everyone. And I just want to say for everyone listening, the national hotline for domestic abuse is on the exEXPERTS website. We have that right there for you. But for anyone listening, if you want to write it down, it's 800-799-7233. And Mira, I believe that from one of the other times we'd spoken with someone on your team, if someone's in the local New York area or the Bergen County area and want to reach out to you, I believe the email is info@hopeandsafetynj.org.
Yeah.
So that would be great. So for anyone who wants to be able to help in any kind of a way. So really just thank you so much for bringing all of this to us. For anyone listening, if you know anyone in your life that this could help, please share. This is vitally important information. We want to be able to spread the word as far and wide as possible. You can also subscribe to the exEXPERTS podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, or follow us on social media. We're at exEXPERTS on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. And thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mira.
Thanks.